Hello, heathens! How y'all doing? Are you guys ready for more Christmas myths? Today, I bet you're not really gonna guess what this one's about. We three kings of Orient were never fucking there. That nativity scene that you see Christians fighting to put up at courthouses on their lawns and all this other stuff, well, that's fabricated. It is nowhere in the Bible, at least exactly as it's depicted. You know, actually, I never really put this one together. Funny as it is, like, I remember the We Three Kings of Orient Are, like that particular song. I remember that so vividly, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, fucking three kings visited him, gave him some gold and incense and myrrh. No! Jesus wasn't visited by three kings at all. I mean, that song is a nice classic and all, but it's not actually rooted in biblical literature. First of all, the visitors were either Magi or shepherds. Now, Magi, not to be confused with the Assassin's Creed Origins Magi, these Magi were more like astronomers. Hence why in the particular story that they're in, they're following a star and not some angel that told them to get off their ass and go visit some Jewish kid. Also, fun to note, the Bible never actually mentions that there are three of them, just three gifts. Just take a look here in the Gospel of Matthew. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. Now, as I said before, there were never three Magi that were specifically stated to be there. Only three different types of presents. The number 3 is actually a magical number in religion. Oftentimes it's associated with like God or wisdom, knowledge, or just heavenly things in general. That's why there's a 3 occurrence in a lot of different things within stories and whatnot. Of course, there's the 3 days with Jesus. Jonah spent 3 days and nights in the belly of the whale. Joseph, the son of Jacob, actually was risen up inside a house of an Egyptian 3 different times during his slave time there. In Exodus, Moses actually asked the Pharaoh to go 3 days out into the desert to praise their God, and that's actually all he asked for. He originally didn't ask for his people to be let go, just that, let us just go out for 3 days, praise God, then 3 days back. We just need a week off. So as you can tell, 3 is a very important number to the Bible and religion in general. Now, you may not know this, but a visit from Magi was actually a pretty customary thing for new princes or kings that were born. Pliny actually tells us that Tiridates brought Magi to pay respect to Nero. Dio Cassius actually describes how the Magi would greet a Caesar, basically just kneeling, crossing their arms, and calling him their master. Suetonius actually records that Magi, or astrologers, would normally call out and announce that the ruler of the world was born. Suetonius again also describes how the Magi would bow and kneel to Augustus in his home. Now, Luke has a much different story, as we all know. Luke places Jesus' birth during the reign of Caesar Augustus. This was when he called for a census, and Quirinius was actually the governor of Syria at the time. Now, keep in mind, this is a full 10-year difference from when Matthew recorded Jesus' birth. You see, Matthew has Jesus being born and then Mary and Joseph actually fleeing to Egypt. This is a mirroring of the Moses story. Now, if you don't remember, Moses was set into a wicker basket, put into a river, and then, he was sent down the river, and the rulers of Egypt actually found him. This all occurred when the Pharaoh was actually calling for all the Jewish kids to be killed. Does this sound familiar? Because it should, because that's the exact circumstance in which Mary and Joseph were fleeing Bethlehem to Egypt. Now, of course, Luke has no idea about this whole slaughter of the innocents deal. Luke actually has them coming from Judea to Bethlehem in order to be accounted for in the census. Now, another key difference here is that there are no Magi in Luke. There are shepherds in Luke. In the Luke story, God actually appears to these shepherds in a field, tells them to get their asses on over to Bethlehem and praise God. Well, he doesn't exactly say Bethlehem, he says town of David, which they would know is Bethlehem. They never followed a star, probably because they're shepherds and they wouldn't have known anything about astrology, but yet Magi would. If there was no star and there were no Magi, what exactly in the nativity scene is from Luke? That would be the manger. Luke 2:7. And she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in clothes and placed him in a manger, because there was no guest room available for them. Now, if you remember in Matthew doesn't actually have them like giving birth and putting them in some kind of dirty ass manger. They actually are in a house when the Magi come and see them. But in Luke here, when the shepherds are directed and told to go and see him, he is born put in swaddled in clothes and put into a manger. So the nativity scene that we see at churches and on front lawns is never explicitly described in the Bible. What we see on church lawns and other people's houses is an amalgam of the two different stories. Sometimes they include an angel. Sometimes they nix the angel and only have the star. Sometimes they have 6 dudes there. Sometimes they only have 3. And sometimes they are kings, which they never were at all. See, this is an interesting way for Christians to reconcile the differences between the two gospel narratives concerning Jesus' birth. They mesh them together, kind of like putting puzzle pieces together by cutting out notches in order to make them fit. So, heathens, I hope that you enjoyed this video today. If you did, hit that like button. Also, leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. And also, make sure you stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens! It's only assumed that there are 3 Jedi. It's only assumed there are 3 Jedi.